My final question, very straightforward. We started off talking high definition. We segued in very nicely to 3D. Are both of these technologies just stepping stones on a roadmap to 4K transmission, or the holy of holy Nirvana 8K transmission? Carl, how do you see ultra or super high def evolving?
I see those formats again appealing to the increasing rollout of digital cinema. Again, about resolution and experience improvement in the digital cinema environment. As I think we touched on even earlier in this session, screen sizes are very different, even between the US, the 60, 70, 80-inch screen, versus the sort of 30, 40-inch screen experience more common in Europe. And in that respect, while 2K, 4K, 8K may be resolution and experience improvements, there's a point in time where even your eye, from a convergence point perspective, isn't going to see the difference from the screen sizes that we more typically have in the home environment. So I think yes, with digital cinema, increasingly over time, but not so sure in terms of actually reaching the home because of screen sizes and room
Ian?
sizes.
I think there's always been a case for production formats and resolutions
for sure, yes.
outpacing what's possible in the home. So I think in the way that we were talking about 1080p and 3 gig infrastructure, it's a given that it will be adopted in a production environment. I think that the case for increasing resolution, you then talk about Ultra HD and basically more resolution for cinematic applications. There's a clear dilemma between whether you need more resolution in the primary image or subsequent depth information, and that's going to be a real challenge there, because there seems to be more push to go through for MVC and make multiple views available rather than actually sort of increase resolution. And I think we do have to get to be realistic and saying that purely on a technical point of view, if you were looking at the justification for 1080p, you've got to be at a screen size over 60 inches. But that's ignoring the fact that these are markets we're talking about.
That's
and there's
right.
enormous potential for saying this is 1080p, regardless of what the
Sure.
engineers say. So I think that there's a long history of production formats outpacing what's possible at the home. And I see more emphasis for the cinemas taking 3D further through better depth perception and MVC and driving it that way than I see for the immediate short-term demand to go to Ultra HD.
Yeah, I would entirely agree with you as to the short term, but the nanosecond, the margins on 3D sets become tight. I tell you, as night follows day, the Panasonics and the Samsungs and the LGs will come up with another basket of attractive gizmos to try and convince the high street buyer to buy this latest set. And I think it'll absolutely be 2K. They're already out. 4Ks have already been demonstrated, I think, in CES. I think you're going to get it. It's a natural evolution.
Well, I think
and then, of course, the consumer will want something to fill that 4K.
Yeah. I mean, if you look now, we've got exactly the same scenario where we've got 1080p boxes with everybody eager to see the rest of the chain filled in the broadcast network, and currently Blu-ray can only satisfy 1080p at low frame rates. And you've already got broadcasters who are saying, what's the remit for going 1080p, 50, 60 and so forth. There's a lot of kickback for Ultra HD, where you're actually talking about its most bandwidth hungry incarnation, requiring 16 times the bandwidth.
Oh, you two guys are going to love it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fantastic. But I think that what you're saying is that already you were quoting, sort of various American broadcasters who were expressing hesitancy at, sort of full res HD. You imagine their reservation when you're talking about taking that in a broadcast scenario.
Impossible. Yeah, currently it's impossible.
So I mean, I think the screen manufacturers should be credited because they've already managed to constantly get in another incarnation of their box. But whether 16 times the bandwidth is what the broadcasters will tolerate, I think it's probably too much.
Probably not. Maria, I suspect you've got no plans.
No, we don't. 3 times the bandwidth was challenging enough for us with our Sky HD, so absolutely no.
But Bob, I mean, you want sharp resolution. It is the holy grail for all of us. But do you see it being a practical possibility for transmission, for broadcast transmission.
I see no reason why, subject to the heat barrier, the technology won't get there at some point. You know, eventually it will be faster,
Yes.
quicker, less power hungry. It will get to a point where it will hit some bottom, and at that point, if it's capable of 2K, 4K or 8K,
I think
marvellous.
that's the key, isn't it? All the technology components need to, as is what's happened with HD, it just needs to be
Come
practical
together.
for us to be able to store it, to be able to
Sure.
pass it through our infrastructure and to be able to get it out to
That's
a
right.
consumer. Otherwise, it's just technology for technology's sake.
Exactly, and there'll be enormous data centres with gazillion, is it yottabytes or something I read the
believe
other
so.
day, of stuff sort of all sitting there. It's fantastic. You know, there'll be bobabytes one day, won't there, or something. But the answer to your question in reality is, I don't think it has anything to do with technology. I think that will eventually get to a point. But do I think it should happen for the 8K experience in the home? To be honest with you, I'd rather hope it doesn't, because you're using technology to take away from a high quality content viewing experience called cinemas, large events, and I think we are in danger, technology, I don't want to be on a soapbox, but I don't think we should get to the point where you can have a full 3D 8K experience in your 12-foot squared living room in Farnham, because you're doing something wrong there in terms of the dynamic, the social dynamic that the content has. So if we're going to get to the point where it can be done technologically, it should be in the cinema.
Yeah, I mean, one must wonder how much further can cinema go when you're looking at an IMAX of Avatar, large screen format, beautifully produced. You know, where can it go from there?
Well, I think for Ultra HD it might be something beyond cinema, because for HD initially it was the business industrial applications, the design concepts or the museums. Now there you have a
Absolutely
real
right.
application
Yeah.
That's a good point.
that
Yeah.
basically brings up the fact that, you know, high resolution in those kind of applications where
Yes.
there's a genuine justification without the broadcast headaches.
Without transmission, exactly.
I mean,
Where
Yes.
it's static.
No, I'd agree with that.
Gents, we've got to call it a day. Our time cannot be compressed any further. To all of you, thank you very much indeed to our panel of experts. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, our audience at home.